How you doing? Alhamdulillah. Hayakallah. No, you can sit in the chair. You don't have to. Sorry. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وخليله أرسله الله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا أما بعد. So alhamdulillah, I want to thank you all for coming out and welcome you all to our pre-Ramadan classes. As you know, today is the 10th, right? Which means that we have about 2 weeks and about 2 days before Ramadan starts. All right, so that's a total of about maybe 16, 17 days before Ramadan, which means that we'll have 2 more classes. Next Wednesday will be the 17th, and then the following Wednesday, which we right there at the cusp of Ramadan. So I figured we would start a couple of weeks before Ramadan came in to actually get ourselves in that zone that many of us are, struggling, trying to eliminate certain things and certain people from our lives right now, so that we could get into that zone where we can maximize the benefit of Ramadan. Ramadan only comes around once a year, and so for many of us, this is probably that one opportunity that we need, to get ourselves right with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, I'll start my lecture as I usually like to start with a dua that I believe is appropriate for this lecture. For those of you listening, if you already know the dua, then alhamdulillah. If you don't, then it would probably be a good idea for you to go back and learn it. Allahumma inna na'udhu bika min qalbin la yakhsha wa min du'a'in la yusma' wa min nafsin la tashba' wa min ilmin la yanfa' Allahumma inna na'udhu bika min ha'ula al-arba'. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Oh Allah, I seek refuge with you from a heart la yakhsha, that doesn't fear you. I seek refuge with you from a heart that does not fear you." And for those of you who took the 20 hadith course, you should already know this dua. Oh Allah, I seek refuge with you from a heart that does not fear you. Because if you don't fear God, if you don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then who do you fear? Think about the implications of a heart that does not fear God, doesn't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, so we seek refuge with you from a heart that does not fear you. وَمِن دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعْ, and we seek refuge with you from a dua that goes unanswered, a dua that you don't answer. Can you imagine you making dua to Allah for something and He doesn't respond? He doesn't answer your dua for whatever reasons that will prevent your dua from being answered. وَمِن نَفْسٍ لَا تَشْبَعْ, and from a soul that is unsatisfied. Can you imagine having a soul that constantly wants more and more and more, is never satisfied? A soul that is not satisfied will commit haram because the halal is not enough for them. the halal is not sufficient. You need more, right? This is the person that, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you is not enough, so you go and you sell your soul to have more. This is a nafsin la tashba'. There's a soul that is uncontented. And from knowledge that does not benefit. وَمِنْ عِلْمٍ لَا يَنْفَعُ مِنْ قَلْبٍ لَا يَخْشَعُ from a heart that does not fear you. وَمِنْ دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعُ from a dua that is not heard or responded to. وَمِنْ نَفْسٍ لَا تَشْبَعُ and from a soul that is uncontented, that is never satisfied. وَمِنْ عِلْمٍ لَا يَنْفَعُ and from knowledge that has absolutely no benefit. From retaining information from someone or some place that has absolutely no relevance in your life. You're just transporting useless information. Don't make your heart or your brain a storage space for information that is completely useless, like other people's business, right? That doesn't concern me. Why are you telling me somebody else's business? It doesn't concern me. I'm not going to make my heart and my mind a storage space for information that has no relevance to my life. And this also applies to, sitting in lectures. Sometimes we sit in front of people who believe that they are knowledgeable and they are feeding you information that is completely irrelevant to your life. He said, وَنَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ الْأَرْبَعِ and I seek refuge with you from these four. This is the Prophet ﷺ overemphasizing. After he sought refuge from these four, then he said on top of that, and I seek refuge with you from these four. The point, the focal point of this dua is the first comment, and that is to seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from a heart that does not fear Him. And this is a heart, as the scholars say, من قلب لا يخشع يعني ترك ذكرك وموعظتك ولا تؤثر فيه النصيحة وذلك القلب القاسي. The scholars say that the heart that does not fear Allah is the heart that does not remember Allah, the heart that does not take benefit from the mu'idah, from the admonition from Allah, a heart that is not impacted by the advice from Allah. And this is a heart that is qasi, a hard heart. Qalbul qasi. Qaf, alif, sin, ya, qasi, which means to be hard, to be rigid, to seek refuge with Allah. So essentially when we seek refuge with Allah from a heart that does not fear Him, we're seeking refuge with Allah from a hard heart. Alhamdulillah. So today is the first class from our pre-Ramadan classes, which we will be covering Kitab al-Riqaq, as you can see from Sahih Al Bukhari. How many of you have Sahih Al Bukhari in your homes? Okay, so find the chapter Kitab al-Riqaq from Sahih Al Bukhari. If you have the 10-volume English version, it will probably be either in volume 9 or 10. It's at the latter volumes of Sahih Al Bukhari, either 9 or 10. Go through 9 or 10, find Kitab al-Riqaq, the book that concerns matters that soften the heart. Find that book. That book is going to be your companion until Ramadan is over with. Yes? In the concise version, just look towards the end. It's towards the back chapters. Right? The last chapter, the last book in Sahih Al Bukhari is Kitab al-Tawheed, the book of Tawheed. So if you work your way back a few chapters, the matters that soften the heart are in there. So if you have the one book concise, it will be in the latter chapters. If you have the 10-volume, it will be either in volume 9 or 10. That book you should bring with you to every class. I want you to familiarize yourself with that book. We're going to understand why Imam Bukhari named that chapter, that title. We're going to study most, if not all of, probably not all, but most of the ahadith that are in that chapter, that are in that book. All right? And so the reason why I selected this particular book was due to the many challenges that we've experienced in the past year. 2016, I don't know about for you guys, but for me, was a very tough year. All right? It gave birth to Donald Trump. I don't need to say any more. And here we are, post-Trump presidency, and one bill after another is being taken off the table, being reversed until, and this is his first 100 days in office. What does the next 3 years have in store for us? Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. But I'm talking more of on a personal note. 2016 was a very rough year for many. And although we made it into 2017 physically, some of us lost a lot along the way. Anyone lost anything in 2016? Some people lost their souls in 2016. Some people lost their marriages in 2016. Some people lost their businesses in 2016. Some people lost their connection to spirituality or their connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 2016. And as the phrase goes, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So don't look at losing something as a loss. Look at it as a way to find yourself. So if you lost your religion in 2016, you was not on your deen in 2016, right? If you lost your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 2016, you lost your marriage in 2016, try to find yourself in 2017. Because the only thing that you should be afraid of losing in your marriage is yourself, not the other person. Some of us will sell our souls to keep the person that we're married to. And although you have your marriage without having you. The worst thing that you can lose in a relationship is yourself. Understand that. So some of us lost our hearts in 2016. However, losing our hearts or pieces of it can be a good thing, because much like research, when you go out and search for your heart, you end up coming across other things about yourself that you didn't know that you lost also. You're like, oh wow, I'm looking for my heart, but I found this too. I didn't realize I lost that either. Right? When you're researching something, when you're looking for one particular thing and you're researching, you're going through information, you come across a lot of other things that you weren't even looking for, but that just comes with the territory of research, right? So you're looking for one thing, but you end up finding so much in the process of that. So don't look at losing your heart or losing your deen or losing your spouse as a loss, because look at the journey that it puts you on to go find your heart, or to go find yourself, or to find other things that you didn't even realize you lost. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "La tahsabuhu sharran lakum, bal huwa khayrun lakum." Don't consider it an evil thing, rather consider it a good thing. And this ayah was in reference to the turmoil that was sparked by the lie that was told on Aisha of accusing her of adultery. And some of the Sahaba kind of fell into that gossip and that spreading the information around the community. And Allah admonished the community, and He said, don't consider it a bad thing, an evil thing. Consider it a good thing. Meaning, the fact that you fell into this, don't consider it necessarily a bad thing. Consider it a good thing because of the outcome, what is going to happen as a result. So some of us see a loss as a loss, and for some of us, we see a loss as a gain. Yeah, I lost this, but look at what I found in the process. You guys follow me? Don't look at your loss as a loss. Look at it as a gain. So the reason why it's called Kitab al-Riqaq, the book of the matters that soften the heart, Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala said the word riqaq, which comes from the word raqqaqa yuraqqiqu, which means to soften something, right? In the Arabic language, the letters in the Arabic language are broken down into two categories. There are huruf muraqqaqa or huruf mufakhama. There are letters that are soft letters, like a, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, right? These are letters that are soft letters. Your mouth should make like a smile when you pronounce them. Ha, ba, ta, tha, right? And then there are huruf mufakhama. They are hard letters, like kha, qaf, ta, va, right? You can see the difference in those letters. They require more formation in your mouth, right? Not only that, the pronunciation of them are very hard. So the word that is used to describe the soft letters is the same word that Imam Bukhari titled his chapter or his book, muraqqaqa, things that are soft, matters that soften the heart. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala said, al-riqaq, matters that soften the heart, are nusus allati turaqqiqu al-qalb. They are textual evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah that are designed to soften the heart. وذلك لأن القلب قد تقسى بالمعاصي وكثرة الغفلة فتحتاج إلى شيء يرققها. He said because the heart could become hard due to sin or just being in a state of perpetual heedlessness, and as a result of that the heart needs something to soften it, soften the heart. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, القلوب آنية الله سبحانه وتعالى في أرضه فأحبها إليه أرقها وأصلبها وأصفاها. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, a very profound statement. He said, القلوب آنية الله في أرضه, that the hearts are the vessels of Allah on earth. What is a vessel? A vessel is something that you pour something into, like a cup, right? He said the hearts are the vessels of Allah on earth. When you think about that, how does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala show mercy to his creation? Through guiding the hearts of someone else to have mercy on that person, right? To have mercy on that person. You get pulled over. This just happened to me literally a month ago. I get pulled over in Camden, and when I came back from the UAE, I didn't renew my license, and the time just passed by so fast, I didn't even realize my license hadn't been renewed. Not only was it not renewed, it was suspended. So the cop pulls me over. He's like, license and registration. So I'm like, okay. So I give him the license and registration. I'm knowing that it's expired. So I have my passport with me. So I said, well, my license is expired. Here's my passport as well. He was like, don't need that. Just give me your license. So he goes back to the car. He comes back. He said, we have a few issues here. I said, what are the issues? He said, your license is expired. I said, I know that. He said, not only is it expired, it's suspended. I said, okay. He said, and you ran the stop sign. I said, okay. He said, and one of the numbers from your license plate or your temporary tag is missing a number. So he had to go look at the VIN number to make sure it was. He was like, yeah, you're missing a number. He said, you have a lot of issues here. I said, okay, so which one are you going to give me the ticket for? So he said, I'm not going to give you a ticket. I said, really? He said, yeah, I'm not going to give you a ticket. He said, but I would suggest that you go to the DMV and you get that taken care of. I said, well, thank you. You know, I'm making dua for him, may Allah guide him, may Allah bless him, blah, 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 blah. Right? So I drive off and I'm saying to myself, subhanallah, that was by divine intervention. There's no way that he was supposed to let me pull off in that condition. What I'm saying is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala conveys his mercy to us by guiding the heart of someone else to be merciful towards us. You guys follow me? So when Ibn Qayyim said that the hearts are the aniyatullah, they are the vessels of Allah on the earth, meaning the hearts are the vessels through which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala conveys his mercy to his creation. If you're riding on the highway and you see somebody pulled over, their tires flat or whatever, and something inside you says pull over to help this person, where do you think that came from? That inspiration to pull over and help that person. Where do you think that came from? For how many of you are teachers here, right? You see this one kid, you walk past the principal's office, you see the kids in the principal's office, and then you stop in and you say to the principal, this is my guy, he's cool, I'll talk to him, I got him, and you get him off the hook. That mercy that you had on that child, where do you think that came from? That came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has a way of using our hearts to convey compassion and mercy to other forms of His creation. Be it animals or be it other human beings. You guys following me? So when Ibn Qayyim said that the qulub aniyatullahi fil ard, that the hearts are the vessels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth, should show us how important the hearts are, how important it is to make sure that your heart remains healthy. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may use your heart to convey mercy or compassion to someone else. But if your heart is corrupt with sin and doubt and disobedience, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to use your heart. Your heart is not the vessel by which mercy and compassion is going to be conveyed to someone. He said, فَأَحَبُّهَا إِلَيْهِ أَرَقُّهَا. And the most beloved hearts to Allah are the softest of hearts. وَأَصْلَبُهَا. And the firmness of hearts, meaning the hearts that are unwavering. These hearts that don't waver. The most beloved hearts to Allah are those that are أَرَقُّهَا, that are the softest, that are unwavering. And وَأَصْفَاهَا, and that are the purest. The purest of hearts. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On the day where no children or wealth will be of any benefit to anyone, only those who come to Allah biqalbin salim, with a pure heart. Your money, your children, none of that will be of any benefit to you Yawm al-Qiyamah, but those who had a pure heart, sound heart, without any animosity towards another believer. Right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said that if anyone wants to see someone from Jannah walking on the earth, look at such and such. So one of the Sahaba said, well, I wanted to see, why is he one of the people of Jannah? So he said, I followed the man for 3 days, trying to figure out, why is he going to Jannah? What is so special about him? He said, and after following him for 3 days, I realized that there was nothing special about him. So I went to him and I said to him, that when you walked up, the Prophet ﷺ made a comment about you and said that if we wanted to see someone from Jannah, from paradise, walking on earth, to take a look at you. He said, and I followed you for 3 days and I didn't see you do anything special. What is so special about you? What was the thing that he said? He said, I make sure that I go to bed every night and I don't have any animosity in my heart for another believer. Nothing. I have nothing in my heart for another believer. Nothing. That takes practice. That takes practice to make sure that your heart is not a vessel carrying animosity, transporting enmity and hatred and jealousy and all of those nasty little qualities that store themselves in our hearts. Now, I'm not carrying any of that for another person. So the most beloved hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those that are the softest, those that are the most unwavering, and those that are the purest. Islam places great emphasis on this organ that we call the heart. There are many texts from the Quran and the Sunnah that highlight the importance of the heart and how vigilant the believer should be in making sure that the heart remains healthy. At the end of this introduction, we will be able to gauge our hearts to see how healthy or unhealthy our hearts have really been, so that we can begin to our journey so that going into Ramadan, we have something to focus on. A lot of times Ramadan becomes unentertaining because we don't have anything to focus on. A lot of times because we think we're perfect. I don't really need to know, what do I need to work on this Ramadan? I need to stop backbiting, or I need to stop doing this and that. That's frivolous stuff. What about the condition of your heart? What about the condition of your heart? What about the jealousy that you have in your heart? The enmity, the hatred, the abhorrence, the dislike that you have for this one or that one? What about the unresolved issues that linger on in your heart, that because they haven't been validated, you walk around with a chip on your shoulder, mad at the world because you haven't been validated? These are matters of the heart that need to be reconciled, and that we should take the time in Ramadan to rectify these issues. So Islam, the Quran and the Sunnah, places emphasis on the condition of the heart and how important it is for the believer to be vigilant in making sure that the heart remains healthy. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala put a quote on the board. He said, فَإِنَّ الْقَلْبِ هُوَ الْمَلَكِ. The heart is the king. وَأَعْضَى جُنُودُهُ. And your faculties, the rest of your body parts, are the soldiers. The heart is the king. The heart is the king. الْقَلْبِ هُوَ الْمَلَكِ. The heart is the king. وَالْأَعْضَى جُنُودُهُ. And the body parts are the soldiers of the king. فهو المضغة التي إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد سائر الجسد. He said, and it is that one organ, that one lump of flesh in the body, that if it is sound and healthy, then the rest of the body will be sound and healthy. And if it is corrupt and unhealthy, then the rest of the body will be corrupt and unhealthy. Whether that is your private part, whether that is your thought process, any other faculty that you have, the origin of its corruption is the heart. As I've said on numerous occasions, that some men tend to think that marrying another woman, right, will help them solve the problem of this desire for women. It's not the marrying another woman that solves that problem. It's the condition of your heart that solves that problem. Straighten out your heart, and your private part will straighten itself out. Straighten out your heart, and your thought process will straighten itself out. Ibn Taymiyyah said, Al-qalb huwa al-malik. The heart is the king. The heart is the king of everything. It is the source of all of the problems that we are experiencing. Sometimes we deal with the symptoms, and we never get to the root of the problem, right? When a child is acting out, right? When a child is acting out in school, right? Usually there's some emotional trauma that child is going through. But we'll deal with the behavior. I'm going to punish you for being disrespectful. I'm going to punish you for getting out of your seat. I'm going to punish you for being disruptive. But we never go to the root. All you're doing is dealing with the symptoms. You never get to the root of the problem. And sometimes sitting the child down and saying, hey, listen, I noticed that this is your behavior. Is everything okay? Talk to me. Confiding in the child, winning the child's trust. Maybe the child doesn't trust anybody. So, a lot of times when we see certain behaviors, understand that the story behind that behavior has a lot to do with the condition of the heart. All right? So he said that the heart is the king and the body parts are soldiers. The soldiers listen and respond to the king. So if the king is healthy, then the soldiers are going to respond accordingly. If the king is unhealthy, then you're going to see unhealthy behavior from people. Not because they have unhealthy behavior, but because the king that is commanding them is unhealthy. لما جاء وابصة ابن معبد إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فسأله عن البر والإثم. One of the companions of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم by the name of Wabisa ibn Ma'bad, he came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم asking him about sin and righteousness. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's response to him was what? Istafti qalbak. Ask your heart. You want to know what sin is? You want to know what righteousness is? He said, ask your heart. Your heart is going to communicate to you what is good and what is not good. He said, Istafti qalbak, ask your heart. And he said this 3 times. He said, Al-bir matma'annat ilayhi an-nafs. He said, righteousness is that which the soul feels good about. When you do it, you feel good. You walk away feeling good about it. No regrets. You feel good about it. He said, but sin, wal-itham ma haka fi an-nafs, wa karihta an yattali'a alayhi an-nas. He said, but sin is what wavers in the chest and what you hate other people finding out about it. When you try to conceal something, 9 times out of 10, the thing is probably not a good thing. Because when you're doing something that's right, this is why we have all these secret marriages in our communities. We're doing the marriages not in the masjid, we're doing them in somewhere else, some remote place, over the phone. We don't want nobody to know about it, right? Not because the cliche, I don't want anybody to destroy my happiness. I don't want to be, affected with the evil eye. Nah, you know that joint was wrong and you don't want nobody to know about it. Or you feel ashamed about it. And if you feel ashamed about doing something, then that should be an indication that 9 times out of 10 is probably not a good thing. You shouldn't feel ashamed about ta'ah, about obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You shouldn't feel ashamed about something that's sunnah, something, the exact same thing that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, and then you're going to do it and feel ashamed about it. La wallahi, I don't feel any shame. If it was good enough for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then it's good enough for me. Who likes it, likes it. Who doesn't, who doesn't. Man radiya falahu rida wa man sakhita falahu sakh. Whoever likes it, then I'm okay with him. And whoever doesn't like it, then for him is his own dislike. Nonetheless, he said, and you hate people finding out about it. وَإِنْ أَفْتَاكَ النَّاسِ وَأَفْتُوكَ. He said, even if people tell you the opposite, your heart will never lie to you. Even if other people tell you, I don't, because sometimes we do things wrong, and then we go to people for advice, and people tell you what they think you want to hear, instead of telling you what you need to hear. I think you want me to say this to you, so I'm going to say this to you to placate your feelings, to appease you, and to assuage your consciousness, to make you feel better about yourself. I don't want to feel better. I want you to tell me if this was wrong or not. And unfortunately, and this is another discussion that we need to have in the Islamic community, is that we oftentimes keep ourselves surrounded by people who constantly blow smoke under our thobes and overgarments. If these are the type of people that you keep around you, then you're going to always be superficial. You're always going to be superficial. If you keep people around you that disagree with you when they don't agree with you, people who tell you like it is and don't cut corners with you, these are the type of people that keep you grounded. These are the type of people that keep you grounded. But we don't want to be around people that disagree with us. To disagree with me means to go against me. And then we'll use, I don't like the way she said it. I don't like the way he said it. How many ways can I tell you I don't agree with you? How many ways you want me to say it before you become comfortable with that? The fact of the matter is that you're not comfortable because I don't agree with you. And it have nothing to do with the way that I said it, the way that I came off. All of that's frivolous. You don't like the fact that someone disagrees with you. And we keep ourselves surrounded by people who are constantly blowing smoke underneath our garments because, this makes us feel good. People may tell you what they believe to be correct or what they believe you want to hear, but your heart will never lie to you. Your heart will always tell you, and this is what is known as internal dissonance. Psychological term that's used in psychology, dissonance. And this is that internal battle within yourself when you do something wrong. Your heart is telling you it's wrong, but you're constantly doing things and surrounding yourself by people who try to make you feel better about the situation. You know it's wrong. Deep down inside of you, you know it's wrong and it's eating away at you. But you keep numbing yourself to the pain by keeping yourself surrounded by people who tell you, don't worry about it, get over it, it's okay, we all commit sin, we all do stuff that's haram. That's not what you need to hear. What you need to hear is that that's haram, and you need to make tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and rectify that situation. Stop living in sin. That's what you need to hear. Not, it's okay, Allah gonna forgive you, Allah knows your situation. A person who tells you that is the shaitan, because they want you to keep sinning. Anybody who sees you clearly in the wrong and allows you to continue on in the haram and doesn't correct you is a shaitan. And I'll bring you my proof as we move on. Rather, the most intimate and honest conversation that you will ever have is the one that you have with your heart. Our body parts speak to us, physically and spiritually. When you eat something that was not good for you, right? Lactose intolerant, you drink something that has lactose in it, you drink milk, you eat some yogurt, and you upset your stomach. That is your body telling you that it cannot handle lactose. You eat too much sugar, and you begin to urinate repeatedly because there's an influx of sugar in your system. That is your body communicating to you. You eat too much salt, and your blood pressure goes up. That is your body telling you you have digested too much. That is your body communicating to you physically. This same body communicates to you spiritually the same exact way. And will communicate to us Yawm al-Qiyamah, as Allah mentions in many verses in the Quran, that on the day of judgment, our mouths will be sealed shut and our body parts will talk. Our body parts will talk. Your hands will testify. Your feet will testify. So how it should not be hard for us to make the connection that your body communicates with you spiritually the same exact way. When your heart is telling you that this is wrong, stop ignoring that conversation. When your heart is telling you that that is wrong, stop ignoring the conversation. All right? So the most intimate and honest conversation you can ever have is the one that you have with your heart, provided that your heart is still healthy and uncompromised. For a sound and uncompromised heart will always communicate truth, sometimes against your own biases and prejudices and self-interests. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَتَكُونُ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا أَوْ آذَانٌ يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't they travel through the earth and they have hearts with which they comprehend, or ears with which they hear? For indeed it is not the eyes that go blind, but the hearts that are in the chest. Al-qulub allati fi as-sudur. That when the heart is hardened, the heart becomes blind. It can no longer differentiate between what is beneficial and what is detrimental, what is good and what is not good. We see with our eyes. These are the people who utilize their logic and their theory, and they're always wrong every single time, because the component that is going to complement your logic and the theory that you've gained from information, your heart is going to confirm that. When you're going to do something, you use your logic, you say this makes sense. Or you may have a hadith or ayat and you say this seems like it makes sense. But your heart is telling you like, yo, this joint is wrong. If your heart is going against your logic or the theory of what you have in front of you, usually your heart is not lying to you. Your heart is not lying to you. The hardening of the hearts, they have reasons. The hardening of the heart, it has reasons and repercussions, all of which this particular book that Imam Bukhari has, Kitab al-Riqaq, all of the hadith in that chapter deal with the reasons and the repercussions of the hardening of the heart. What is the hardening of the heart? The scholars say, أَنَّ قَسْوَةَ الْقَلْبِ, the hardening of the heart, ذَهَابَ اللِّينِ وَالرَّحْمَةِ وَالْخُشُوعِ, is the removal of leniency Rahmah, mercy, wal khushu' and fear of Allah. If you are looking at the condition of your heart right now, and you find that you don't have a lenient bone in your body, you want retribution for the smallest little infraction, you have no mercy, no compassion, no leniency, you want yours, you ain't taking no shorts, right? Then this is a sign that your heart is hard. That is not our nature. Islam does not do that to you. Person who prays 5 times a day, person who fasts Mondays and Thursdays, this is all designed. Person who claims they know the religion. Knowledge does not make your heart hard. Knowledge makes your heart soft. So if you find a person who claims they have knowledge of the religion, but all of what they talk about is designed to belittle and humiliate and, talk condescendingly and never uplift people, then what they have has hardened their hearts, and it's not beneficial knowledge. Because knowledge of the religion does not do that to your heart. Knowledge of the religion makes you merciful, compassionate, understanding, lenient. This is what knowledge of the religion does. Naam, faddal shaykh.
How can you change that if we grew up in an environment as we were, that especially men, Afro-American men, that were, if you were soft, you were sweet. So now that you're older and you learn to be, it's a hard transition to switch, as I might say.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. He said, what about those of us who grow up in certain environments where the environment has impacted us in a way where we were taught to be hard, right? To be soft was to be sweet, and people would see you as vulnerable. So as a result of that, you had to have a certain hardness with you. And then now we become Muslim. We transition from that life into the life of Islam. And even in Islam, sometimes Muslims think you sweet. Real talk. Sometimes people see you in your thobe and your beard and they think it's all good. And so sometimes we maintain that hardness because we don't want to appear, especially African American men, we don't want to appear weak, vulnerable, or soft. We're going to get into that because environment does play a factor in that. When you look at children, there are certain environments that children are born into. If a child is born, it's called a sensory adoptive nature. That children, even in the womb, can sense the type of environment that they are being born into. And they adapt to that environment even in the womb. Which is why it's very dangerous to be arguing and things like that and creating this type of environment. The child can hear everything. The child can hear everything. Very important. So as human beings, we adapt to our environments. We adapt. So how do we create an environment for us in Islam, in the Muslim community, where we can learn how to be soft in the manner that the religion requires of us? In the manner that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires of us. Your heart has to be soft to a certain degree so that Allah can use you to convey mercy to somebody, to convey compassion to somebody. And we'll get into that. So there are certain reasons, asbab. There's certain reasons for the hardness of the heart, and there are certain repercussions, meaning things that happen as a result of the heart being hardened. And this particular book deals with those things. So I want to just talk for this class and the next class, and then we'll kind of get into the book. Some of the things that harden the heart. Some of the things that harden the heart. Number one, sin and disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the top of the list. Sin and disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the top of the list. And we all sin, so we all should be paying attention as to how these sins are affecting us, how these sins are affecting our hearts. Sin and disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of the main causes for the hardening of the heart. And from one Ramadan to the next, we are forgiven for the sins that we commit between them. The Prophet ﷺ said, "As-salawatul khams wal jumu'ah ila al-jumu'ah wa Ramadan ila Ramadan kaffarat lima baynahuma idha ijtuniba al-kaba'ir." The Prophet ﷺ said, the 5 daily prayers, meaning from one salat to the next salat until all 5 prayers are done, and from one Jumu'ah to the next Jumu'ah, and from one Ramadan to the next Ramadan, there is a kafarat. There are expiations of the sins that were committed in between, so as long as you stay away from the major sins. So we're not even talking about the major sins. Obviously, the major sins does more than just heart and heart. Some major sins may put you outside of the fold of Islam, if in fact those major sins are viewed as halal, or if the person constantly, continuously commits them. Nonetheless, and when I mean constantly commits them, meaning that he doesn't see them to be, or she doesn't see them to be haram anymore. The scholars, they say, "Antum takhafuna dhunub wa nahnu nakhafu kufr," that you all fear sin, but we fear disbelief, because sin is the gateway to disbelief. Sin will take you outside of the fold of Islam, simply because when the shaitan gets you going, he's not going to stop there. Shaitan's goal is not to get you to sin. Shaitan's goal is to get you to commit enough sin that you say to hell with religion and leave it all together. You guys follow me? Don't think Shaitan's goal is to get you to sin. That's the first step. Once he gets you going, he eventually wants to take you outside of the fold of Islam altogether. Nonetheless, that we are forgiven for the sins that we commit from one Ramadan to the next. And here we are approaching another Ramadan. And hopefully the sins that we've committed, that we are going to be forgiven for those sins. However, forgiveness of the sin is one thing. The impact that those sins have on our hearts is something totally different. So although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may forgive you for the sins that were committed from one Ramadan to the next, that's forgiveness. That's something totally different. We're talking about, what did those sins do to your heart in the process? See, we focus on the hadith. The narration says that we're forgiven from one Ramadan to the next, so we can just sin, ball out and sin, right? And then when the next Ramadan come around, we're rejoicing, because we're like, I'm forgiven. The hadith says from one Ramadan to the next. Okay, you're forgiven. But what about the impact that those sins had on your heart? What about that? The hadith doesn't mention anything about that. Why? Because that's your own personal journey. That's your personal journey. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot fix that for you. You have to fix that yourself. Allah says in the Quran, "Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim." That Allah will not change the condition of a people until at first they do what? Until they change. That's your personal journey. The sins that you committed between one Ramadan to the next, yeah, you're forgiven for. But the impact that those sins had on your heart, that's your journey. That's your journey. The Prophet ﷺ said, أن المؤمن إذا أذنب ذنبا كانت نكتة السوداء في قلبه فإن تاب ونزع واستغفر سقل قلبه فإن زادت فذلك الران الذي ذكره الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه. The Prophet ﷺ said that the believer, when he sins or she sins, نُكِتَ فِي قَلْبِهِ نُكْتَةُ سَوْدَى, there's a black stain placed on his or her heart. Follow me. He didn't say major sin. He said when he sins. Obviously, if that is going to happen with the minor sin, then without a doubt it happens with the major sin. But when the believer sins, a black stain is placed on his heart. This is the spiritual aspect of sin and how it impacts the heart. Black stain is placed on the heart. He said, فَإِن تَابَ, if he turns back from the sin, وَنَزَعَ, and stops committing the sin, meaning he realizes it's wrong, he stops committing the sin, وَاسْتَغْفَرَ, and he seeks Allah's forgiveness, سُقِلَ قَلْبُهُ, and his heart will be wiped clean. The stain will be erased, removed. The sin will be removed. I did a khutbah some time ago called How to Clean Your Slate. We dirty our slate up with sin. There are tons of ways in Islam to clean your slate. To have a safha bayda, to have a white page, a clean page. Right? This is our narrative. Everything the angel writes down that you do and you say, that's your narrative. You are dictating to the angel what they write down. That's your narrative. You own it. But before your book reaches the publisher, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have an opportunity to edit your book. You have an opportunity to edit your book, meaning erase some things from your book, so when you stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Yawm al-Qiyamah, you don't have to worry about that being there. He says, so if he stops, he realizes this is wrong, and he makes tawbah, he asks Allah for forgiveness, then his heart will be suqila qalbuhu, his heart will be wiped clean. He said, فَإِنْ زَادَ زَادَ, that if he turns back to the sin, then the stain increases. The black stain increases. He said, فَذَلِكَ الرَّانَ الَّذِي ذَكَرَهُ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى فِي قَلْبِي في كِتَابِهِ. He said, this is the ran, the stain that Allah mentioned in the Quran. There's a verse in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِمُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كَلَّا بَلْ. No, it is a ran, is a stain on the hearts because of the sins that they used to commit. Right? So this is the stain that Allah is mentioning in the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ is explaining in more detail how that stain is erased and how it is increased. Hasan al-Basri, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the scholars of the past, he said, وَهُوَ ذَمْ عَلَى الذَّمْ حَتَّى يَعْمَى الْقَلْبُ وَيَمُوتِ. He said, this is sin on top of sin until the heart is completely blind for yamut, and it dies. Some of us are dead spiritually. Heart is completely black. Heart completely black. So there's a spiritual process that is happening with our hearts every time we sin. Every time we sin, there's a spiritual process that is happening to our hearts. And for those of us who are conscious of this process, it's scary. It's scary to know that every time that I disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a black stain placed on my heart. And that the more I sin, the more I am subjecting my heart to be completely black. So you think about the Muslim who lives in sin, lives his or her life daily in sin, and never repents, never makes tawbah, never reconciles that situation. And that in itself has repercussions as well. So for those of us who are conscious of this process, it's scary. Because we don't know at what point this black stain is going to manifest in a more physical realm. That's the spiritual process. Your heart is blackening. What are the physical manifestations of a black heart? How does that manifest in a physical way? How it's going to manifest? Who is going to affect? There are three important relationships that we have in our lives as Muslims. Your relationship with Allah, your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with others, starting with the people that are closest to you. The Prophet ﷺ said, اتق الله حيثما كنت وأتبع السيئة حسنة تمحوها وخالق الناس بخلق حسن. He said, fear Allah wherever you may be. That's your relationship with Allah. Fear Allah wherever you may be. Follow up a bad deed with a good deed and it'll wipe it away. You do something wrong, then turn right back around and do something right. And it'll wipe it away. That's your relationship with yourself. That's your own personal journey. Every time you do something wrong, turn right around and do something right. Right your wrongs. Don't justify them. Some people live in sin because instead of righting the wrong, they justify it. Well, I only did that. Well, Allah knows my situation or whatever. It's like, hey, listen. And one of the things that we have to stop doing with people, stop taking ownership for their lives. When you say to a person, that's between you and Allah. I don't have nothing to do with that. You're putting the onus on the person. But when you take personal responsibility of somebody else's life, you give them the luxury to say, you deal with my life. I'm not dealing with your life. That's your stuff. That's between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't have nothing to do with that. That's between me and Allah. You absolutely right. That's between you and Allah. Well, you can't make me do this. I'm not trying to make you do anything. I remember there was a brother, I was counseling him and his wife. This was years ago, over a decade ago. And the brother, came in the office and the brother said, I'm not going to divorce my wife and I'm not giving her a khula. So whatever you're coming in here to tell me is irrelevant, right? Because people think that you care that much, right? He said, I'm not granting her a khula and I'm not divorcing her. So I don't know what you're coming in here to talk about. I said, brother, I just have this to say to you. I said, I don't care. I said to the sister, she has tears in her eyes. I said, with all due respect to you, I said, I don't care if you grant her khula or you don't divorce her. That's your life. But I do want you to understand that this woman right here, she has a Lord. She has a Lord. And if you decide to keep her in an oppressive situation, you have him to deal with. Don't worry about me. I'm nobody. So if you decide that you don't want to grant her khula and you don't want to divorce her, you want to keep her in an oppressive situation, that's totally up to you. But that does not come without repercussions. Assalamu alaikum. I walked away. The next Jumu'ah, not even the next Jumu'ah, like 2 days later, I saw the brother at the Salat. And he says to me, Sheikh, can I talk to you for a second? I'm like, sure. He said, is Allah really going to punish me if I keep the sister in a situation like that? I put it on him. And you got to deal with that. See what happens when you put that on the other person? Don't take on nobody else's issues. You got enough to deal with on your own. I'm not taking on no extra loads. That's your journey. That's your issue. But people have the luxury because they let you play counselor. So they come to you with their issues. I did this, I did that, astaghfirullah, I probably shouldn't have did that. And then they let you sort through all their issues and fix their problems for you. I'm not Ayanla. I'm not fixing your life. Fix your own life. You're an adult. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when you stop taking ownership of other people's issues, you force people to confront their own issues. So, the Prophet ﷺ said, fear Allah wherever you may be, follow up a bad deed with a good deed and it'll wipe it away, and treat people with good character. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسِ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. That is your relationship with others. 3 most important relationships that we have in our lives, and sin affects every single area of these 3. It affects your relationship with Allah, it affects your relationship with yourself, and it affects your relationship with other people. I'm going to show you how. We don't have control over our hearts. As I said before, if we had control over who we love, we would probably be in some of the most horrible situations. Because the heart knows what it wants. Allah knows what it needs. So Allah gives you what He knows is best for you. While we select what we believe we want, or we believe what is best for us. People are together right now, don't realize how that connection was made. It had nothing to do with you or you seeing each other and your eyes locking and it was love at first sight. Nah, there was a spiritual process that was happening with that. The connection of those souls. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-arwah junudun mujannada, that the souls are like recruited soldiers. Before these souls occupied these bodies that we have, those souls resided somewhere else. And those souls had an affinity and a connection to one another. So when those souls cross paths in this life, in the physical realm, the souls recognize. You ever run into somebody and you say, Dag, it's like I've known you all my life. It's like we met for the first time. It's like I've known you forever. That's not haphazard. There was a connection between the souls before they occupied those bodies that they're occupying now. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of our hearts. And we don't really know or understand the ill effects of sin and how it's going to affect us and the people around us. People sin and they don't realize what they're doing to their hearts and how those sins are going to affect them. The Prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, I want you to listen to this ayah very closely. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا ثُمَّ آمنوا ثُمَّ كَفَرُوا ثُمَّ ازدادوا كفرا لم يكن الله ليغفر لهم ولا ليهديهم سبيلا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, indeed those who believe and then disbelieve, and then believe and then disbelieve, Allah increases them in their disbelief, and Allah will not guide them to any path of virtue or any path of guidance. The scholars that explain this ayah say that this is the person who sins and their sin takes them out of Islam. Not that sins makes a person a disbeliever, but their sin hardens their hearts to such a degree that they exit Islam, they leave Islam. And then Allah has mercy upon them and guides them back. And then they sin more and they go back outside of the fold of Islam. And the second time they go out, Allah says He increases them in kufr. They don't come back. So there are Muslims right now, born and raised Muslim, who believe that because my parents are Muslim, I grew up in a Muslim community, that I can sin and disobey Allah, and I will always have the cushion of being born and raised Muslim and being part of a Muslim community. I will always have that cushion. You are not guaranteed that. We know many Muslims who were born and raised Muslim who are not Muslim anymore. We don't have control over that heart. Very dangerous. Allah says in the Quran, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِ. And know that Allah comes in between a man and his heart. You don't have control over that. Know that Allah comes in between a man and his heart. So you might sin thinking that it's all good. All the while Allah is paving a way. You are paving a way for yourself out of Islam. And you don't even realize it. The more and more you sin, you are paving a way for yourself to leave out of Islam. And there's no guarantee that you come back. Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the great scholars of the past, he said, إِنِّي لَأَعْصِ اللَّهَ فَأَعْرِفُ ذَلِكَ مِنْ خُلُقِي حِمَارِي وَخَادِنِي وَامْرَأَتِي وَفَأْرَ بَيْتِي. Fudayl ibn Iyad, he said, I might disobey Allah and then notice a change in the behavior of my maid, my wife, my riding animal, even the mouse in my house acts different. Maybe the mouse doesn't feel comfortable. Animals can sense energy. He said that I disobey Allah and I can see the ill effects of my disobedience in the behavior of my wife. Some of us right now are having problems in our homes, in our marriages, and we don't realize that the reason why we are having problems, marital problems, is not because there's a lack of communication or because of this or, some incongruency, some inconsistency in the way that we mesh, right? A lot of times it's one of us is disobeying Allah. So as a result of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns the heart of one spouse away from the other. So we feel like there's a disconnect there. Not because there's necessarily a disconnect, but because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of the hearts. Allah gives us a similitude in the Quran of a hard heart. And how, due to disobedience, like a rock. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this reference to Bani Israel in relation to the man that was murdered. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them to take a piece of the calf and strike the body of the deceased, and the person will come back to life and tell who killed him. But Bani Israel, because they didn't want to obey Allah, they kept asking, what color should it be? Should it be a male or a female? Should it be domesticated or not? Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَذَبَحُوهُ فَمَا كَادُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. Finally they slaughtered the cow, but they almost didn't do it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala follows that ayat up with another ayat, talking about the hardness of their hearts as a result of their disobedience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة وإن من الحجارة لما يتفجر منه الأنهار وإن منها لما يشقق فيخرج منه الماء وإن منها لما يهبط من خشية الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون. In Surah Al Baqarah, Surah number 2, ayat 74, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and then after this, your hearts became hardened. فَهِيَ كَالْحِجَارَةِ, like a rock. أَوْ أَشَدُّ قَسْوَةً, or even harder than a rock. He said, indeed, some rocks, يَتَفَجِّرُ مِنْهُ الْأَنْهَارِ, rivers come out of certain rocks. He said, وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَا يَشَّقَّقُ فَيَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ مَاءٌ. He said, there's some rocks that split open and there's water inside of it, that although hard, is still a place where softness can reside. He said, وَإِنَّ مِنْهَا لَمَا يَهْبِتُ مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. He said, and there's some rocks that sink, that fall out of fear of Allah. Follow me. There's some rocks that although rigid, although hard, can fall out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the mountain, when Musa asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show himself to him, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Musa said, قَالَ رَبِّي أَرِنِي أَنظُرْ إِلَيْكَ. Show me yourself so I can look at you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded, قَالَ لَن تَرَانِي وَلَكِنْ أَنظُرْ إِلَى الْجَبَلِ فَإِنْ اسْتَقَرَّ مَكَانَهُ فَسَوْفَ تَرَانِي. But look at this mountain. If it stays in its place, then you'll see me. فَلَمَّا تَجَلَّى رَبُّهُ لِلْجَبَلِ جَعَلَهُ دَكًّا. And then when Allah exposed himself to the mountain, turned the mountain into powder. This mountain crumbled before God. This is a mountain, a rock, inanimate object that can crumble to powder before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are some hearts that are harder than rocks. He said, your hearts became hard, kal hijara, bal ashaddu qaswa, even harder than rocks. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in another ayat in the Quran, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. That if we had sent this Quran down on a mountain, the mountain would have crumbled due to the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are mountains that crumble before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are hearts that are even harder than these mountains. SubhanAllah. So this is as it relates to how sin affects you, how it affects people around you, as well as how it affects Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that إِذَا أَبْغَضَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا دَعَى جِبْرِيلَ فَيَقُولُ إِنِّي أُبْغِضُ فُلَانًا فَأَبْغِضْهُ. That when Allah hates a servant, He calls out to Jibreel and He says, "Oh Jibreel, I hate so-and-so, so hate him." فَيُبْغِضُهُ Jibreel. And so Jibreel hates him. This is all as a result of sin. Can you imagine for a moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates you? That the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is upon you? Who wants to live with that? And not only that, that when Allah hates you, He calls out to Jibreel and He tells Jibreel, I hate so-and-so. أُبْغِضُ فُلَانًا فَأَبْغِضْهُ. I hate so-and-so, so hate him. And Jibreel hates you. The angel that brings mercy to mankind through revelation hates you because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates you. Right? And then, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that angel Jibreel calls out to the other angels and says, Allah hates so and so, for yubghiduhu ahlus sama, and so the angels hate you. Can you imagine? Allah hates you, angel Jibreel hates you, the angels hate you. And then what happens as a result of that? يُوضَعُ الْبَغْضَاء يُوضَعُ لَهُ الْبَغْضَاء فِي الْأَرْضِ. Then as a result of that, hatred for you is placed into the hearts of people on the earth. So just as Allah can convey His mercy to other forms of creation through the hearts of other forms of creation, Allah can convey His anger to you through the hearts of other people. You wonder why this person treats you like this. You wonder why this person acts like that towards you. Sometimes we don't even know. You ever seen a person, and when you see the person, you're like, man, I don't like this person. Not out of jealousy, just something about the person just rubs you the wrong way. I don't like this person. I don't want to be in the same room with this person. I don't even know them, but it's just something about them that makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to be around this person. Are you spiritually connected that you are aware of the different fluctuations of emotions that are happening in your heart and why? Do we ever stop to think about why that's happening? Why just seeing someone walk through the door, and the moment you see their face, you just dislike them? You never even talked to them, never had a conversation with them, never sat next to them, nothing. You don't know anything about them. But just seeing them walk through a door, something about them you just hate. It irks you, you dislike them. There's an energy that is going on that we are not aware of. And perhaps that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way of conveying His anger to that person through your heart, using your heart as the vessel to convey that to the person. And for those of us that are aware, then we're like, dang, man, like I done came across 3 or 4 people, within my day that I have skirmishes with, that I have run-ins with, and I'm usually a likable person. I'm just trying to figure out why is it. That's self-reflection. Now you go back and you say, well, maybe I'm disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in some area of my life, and I need to fix that. Because I usually am, have good relationships with people. I'm usually a likable person. Some more than others. But for some reason, I'm just running into skirmishes with people. It's not that people don't like you. It might be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like you. And Allah is conveying that to you through the hearts of His creation. Go back to the statement of Ibn al-Qayyim. What did he say? He said that the hearts own aniyatullahi fil ard. They are the vessels of Allah on the earth. This is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala conveys His anger as well as His mercy and compassion. So keep that in mind. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if Allah hates you, then He calls out to Jibreel and He tells Jibreel that I hate Fulan, so hate him. Right? Before we conclude, so your sins not only affect you, affect your relationship with Allah, but it also affects the people that are around you, affects your children. Sometimes your children become disrespectful to you because your children don't see you with the level of honor and respect, because Allah is using their hearts to mirror to you His displeasure with you. You guys follow me? I'm going to read this hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, and then I'm going to stop here. And after this hadith, I'm sure all of this will be clear. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, and this hadith was on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ مُحَمَّدٍ بِيَدِهِ مَا تَوَادَّ اثْنَانِ فَفَرَّقَ بَيْنَهُمَا إِلَّا الذَّمْ يُحْدِثُهُ أَحَدَهُمَا. The Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by the one in whose hands Muhammad's soul is in. I swear by the one in whose hands Muhammad's soul is in. No 2 people love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Keep in mind, our love for one another is a love for the sake of Allah. He said, no two people love each other for the sake of Allah, فَفَرَّقَ بَيْنَهُمَا, and they are separated except one of them has committed sins. So, for going back to, we lost some friends in 2016. And as narcissistic as we like to be, we like to say it's their loss. They lost me. I cut you off. If I cut you off, then obviously you gave me the scissors. Right? We like to use these narcissistic phrases. Maybe you didn't cut the person off. Maybe you guys fell out because one of you were committing sin. The Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by the one in whose hands Muhammad's soul is in, no two people love each other for the pleasure of Allah and then separate, except that one of them is committing sin. One of them is committing sin. And this hadith was graded authentic by Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala, so no discrepancy about the authenticity. And the scholars, they say, Lam yadhkur an-nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam nor' them. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, if you notice in the hadith, he didn't mention the type of sin. He said they were committing sins. He said, so this means it could be any sin that separate you and the people that you are close to. Meaning, if you value the companionship of the people that are around you, stop committing sin that would separate you. If you value your relationship with your spouse, stop committing sin that would separate you. He says, so the fact that the Prophet ﷺ didn't mention any sin in particular, major or minor, it could be it could be any sin. يكون سببا في التفريق بين المتحابين, that any sin could be the leading cause of separation between people who love each other. وكذلك بين الزوجين, also between two spouses. والأقارب وغيرهم, even family members. Even family members. So this shows you how sin hardens your heart and how it has residual effects on your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as your relationship with one another, as well as your relationship with yourself. So this is the first point. There were some other pieces of information, but inshallah ta'ala fihi kifaya. We'll stop here bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So as you can see, I'm just kind of walking you through the word riqaq, which means matters that soften the heart. But I thought before we kind of delved into this chapter, we needed to understand what are the things that harden the heart. What does a hard heart look like? And we'll talk about that in the next class, inshallah ta'ala. What does a hard heart look like? What are the physical manifestations that my heart has hardened? This Ramadan, let's do some self-reflection. Let's do some introspection. Let's look deep within ourselves and fix the problem that is within us, and then allow the other problems that go on around us to fix themselves. Sometimes we're worrying about all of the other problems. Don't worry about the other. Those will fix themselves. Fix you. Fix you. And everything else will fix itself. And if it doesn't fix itself, then suffice it to say it's not for you. It's okay. This is what I wanted to present, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa salama tasliman kathira wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Is it time for that? Okay, so we'll call it there now, inshallah ta'ala. I'll wait after the salat if anyone has any questions, inshallah, after the salat. Bi-idhnillah. Afwan.